The Simpsons is in the news again with an eerily accurate prediction surrounding Donald Trump, but it's not the one you think.
And that's not all. 2024 has seen even more odd similarities to the popular animated sitcom, so let's just jump right in.
Alright, he's the man on everybody's mind and the name on everybody's lips as of 6:11 p.m. on July 13th, 2024. It's Donald Trump. And the question likely on all of your minds is, did The Simpsons actually predict what we think they predicted? Well, let's break it down. In season 11, episode 15 of The Simpsons, Bart to the Future, which was released in 2015, The Simpsons did predict that Donald Trump would in fact be running for president in 2024. A prediction that would have not come true had Trump served 2 consecutive 4-year terms starting in 2017. During the episode, Homer Simpson can be seen flying past a presidential campaign sign that reads Trump 2024. As for the events and the attempt made on the former president this past July 13th, the prediction is false. Not only that, but this image never actually appeared in The Simpsons. It's doctored all the way down to the Huffington Post watermark. So I'm sorry, but to all of you out there sharing the image on Twitter with the caption, you can't make this stuff up. I just want you to know that you 100% can. There is something else, however, that might be of interest to those hoping that The Simpsons did in fact make a prediction regarding the events on July 13th. This image here, which is blurred to comply with YouTube guidelines, is a screen grab taken from a new unreleased episode of The Simpsons. In it, you can see a weapon being aimed at Lisa while she presents at a political rally. The episode was supposed to air on July 14th, the day after the incident took place, but it was pulled due to the similarity between the subject matter of the episode and the events just 1 day prior. That's pretty wild.
Bart to the Future, it's just the gift that never stops giving when it comes to uncanny predictions about the future, which we're unfortunately in the midst of. So in the episode, Lisa is president and alludes to some economic issues, telling Milhouse, as you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Milhouse Van Houten? With Milhouse responding, we're broke. The episode takes place in 2030. Trump and Biden are currently running for president, and we pretty much all know who's gonna win at this point. So the timeline of this syncs up surprisingly well. And are we on the verge of an economic crisis? I mean, most people would say we're already in it. Not only is there a lot going on in the world right now, just a couple wars, the job market abruptly shifting due to AI, more on that in a minute, but we're also recovering from a lot. That little thing that started spreading around in 2020 certainly didn't help with the economy. So Bart to the Future is just getting more and more real with each passing day.
While we have definitely mentioned AI takeover on this channel before, I feel like each time a Simpsons prediction video rolls around, it's worth mentioning again, because these artificial intelligent technologies just keep on advancing, threatening our livelihood and sometimes even our lives. Some recent terrifying advancements in AI technology include deepfakes, brain implants, and of course, Teslas. As some of you might know, deepfakes generated by AI have begun circulating the web at a rapid rate as of late. Deepfakes so realistic it has become increasingly difficult to distinguish the truth from fantasy while browsing the web. At one point, it was quite easy to tell by hands with 10 fingers and faces with 3 ears that a video was fake, but today it takes a lot more effort. It's pretty scary that in this day and age, with pretty much all of the information you could ever think of accessible at the click of a mouse or the touch of a screen, we really have no way of knowing what's real and what's fake. More on Teslas and brain chips after this. Take it away, James.
Paul McCartney did something in 2024 that felt oddly similar to something that played out in The Simpsons way back. In the season 2 episode, Brush with Greatness, Bart finds Marge's old paintings of Ringo Starr of the Beatles in the attic. Marge had sent Ringo a portrait years before, but never got a response. Lisa ends up encouraging Marge to join a painting class, so she does. Wins an art show, but then she's tasked with painting Mr. Burns, who ends up coming over to the house and in true Mr. Burns fashion, just insults the entire family. Marge gets so fed up she's on the verge of quitting the project, but then she finally receives a letter from Ringo Starr, praising her portrait of him from decades before. This reignites her passion for art, and the end of the episode ends happily. Now, this sounds like something that would only happen in an animated sitcom, but something similar happened in real life. It wasn't Ringo, but it was another Beatle, Paul McCartney. In May of 2024, Paul responded to a woman from Brooklyn named Adrian. She'd proclaimed her love for him in a video interview 60 years before. Paul saw her video and responded through a TikTok and Instagram video inviting her to a photo exhibition in New York. And before that, Paul had also replied to two men from Essex who'd sent him a mixtape decades earlier. So, hey, there you go. Don't be a stan. Sometimes it takes celebrities a while to get back to you. Is anyone gonna get the Stan reference?
Back to brain chips. On January 28th of this year, a real-life human being received the very first Neuralink, a real-life AI-powered brain chip that goes in the brain. The next day, Elon Musk, founder of the company, tweeted the first human received an implant from Neuralink yesterday and is recovering well. Initial results show promising neuron spike. That is all good and well, but considering Elon's track record for AI inventions, well, let's put it this way. Recently, there has been a major increase in Tesla users reporting being either locked out or locked in of their cars because of battery failure or other problems with the software. There have also been instances where the electric engines have caused fires and the AI driving features have caused cars to swerve on the road. Not only that, but have you seen the new Cybertruck? Well, apparently the door safety features aren't really up to par with other electric cars on the road. Basically, when an automated door shuts, there's supposed to be a safety feature that senses whether or not a body part, such as a finger or an arm, is in the way of the door. If it senses it, the door should bounce back so it doesn't break your limbs off. It appears that the Cybertruck lacks that feature. Take a look. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I hope Neuralink, the literal chip that gets implanted into a person's literal brain, is a little more reliable than some of Elon's other projects. By the way, this is not Elon slander. Don't come for me. It's facts. It's for you.
So I mentioned Lisa being president in Bar to the Future earlier, but could reality be mimicking this episode in even more ways? Take Kamala Harris, for example. Not only is she the first female vice president, but there's a very high chance she may go on to be president in the very near future, perhaps right after Trump's term. I mean, after the next term. We don't know who's going to win. Again, Bar to the Future, where Lisa is president, takes place in 2030, so it lines up pretty well. It's also pretty nutty that Kamala Harris had a very similar outfit to Lisa in this episode when she was inaugurated in 2021. Purple jacket, pearls, even the earrings, pretty much identical. I mean, she looks just like her. She's just not plagued with jaundice like everyone in The Simpsons, unfortunately, is.
In episode 2 of season 28 of The Simpsons, Friends and Family, Mr. Burns, Homer's boss, gets a hold of some virtual reality glasses. He takes them home and uses them to program a virtual family. The show then fast forwards to a few years later, and pretty much everyone, and by that I mean literally everyone, is using VR glasses, living in virtual worlds completely separate from reality and completely separate from one another. That episode came out in 2016. Apple Vision Pro, the real-life version of these VR glasses, came out this year on February 2nd of 2024. The glasses are mixed reality headsets that allow digital media to interact with the world in front of you, which luckily means that current on-the-go virtual reality devices do still ground themselves in some kind of reality, but based on the predictions made in The Simpsons, one day that might not be the case. Furthermore, while the glasses have yet to become mainstream, there are already people who claim to have incorporated them fully into their daily routines. I just personally find this so scary. It's, live in the now, in reality. Please.
Here's another wild example of life being stranger than fiction sometimes. Season 28, episode 2, titled Friends and Family, has a scene where Marge and Homer use VR goggles to eat virtual reality food, slurping up fudge through straws. Virtual fudge. Fully immersed in this VR experience. Now, this might sound far-fetched, mostly to older folks, not really all that crazy in 2024, so it's probably no surprise to anyone that there's actually a company working on something very similar. Flavor 5 Studio. It's a project called Aero Banquets RMX. It's kind of like a virtual reality art project where you put on VR headsets and you dine in this virtual reality. The project aims to explore, apparently, the intersection of food and mixed reality, trying to change how we experience eating. So, just like Marge and Homer eating VR fudge, Aero Banquets RMX lets people enjoy a meal in a whole new way, blending the real and virtual worlds.
While it is true, The majority of The Simpsons predictions covered on this channel are pretty gloom and doom coded or just like scary and weird. There are some Simpsons predictions that are not terrifying omens of the end of life as we know it, but are instead just pretty fun and kind of cool. Take for example the famous 1990s band Cypress Hill, known for hit songs like Dr. Green Thumb and Insane in the Membrane, performing with one of the classiest and most prestigious musical groups in the world, the London Symphony Orchestra. In a 1996 episode of The Simpsons titled Homerpalooza, Homer Simpson hosts a music festival during which the London Symphony Orchestra and Cypress Hill perform together in an incredibly intriguing version of Insane in the Membrane. Fast forward to July of this year, 2024, and it actually happened for one night only. Cypress Hill joined the London Symphony Orchestra to perform hits from their 1993 album Black Sunday at the Royal Albert Hall, an incredible night that the hip-hop group actually accredited to The Simpsons, saying, "We salute The Simpsons because if they had not written that episode, we probably wouldn't be doing this," which just then goes to support the theory that The Simpsons doesn't predict the future, it creates it.
And finally, we got more food, printed food. In the episode Future Drama, Marge takes a picture of Bart and Lisa before prom and then turns it into a 3D printed cake. This might have seemed like pure science fiction when it aired in 2005, but it's becoming a reality. Not only is 3D printing technology widely available now, I mean, it's not as common to find in a home as a regular printer, but if you really want a 3D printer, you can get one, and yes, even 3D printed food is a thing now. There is a company called Food Inc. that specializes in this technology. They've even opened a restaurant where all the food is 3D printed. And it's not just the food either. They offer a unique gourmet experience where even the utensils and the furniture are all created through 3D printing.
Oh no!
Oh no!
No!
Oh no! Oh, dear God, no!
Here we go again.
Secrets of the Universe, Economics, and Failed Business Ventures. Are the Simpsons writers really Freemasons or members of the Bohemian Grove who dictate the future rather than predict it? You tell me. Starting us off today, the universe, but not just any universe. In true Homer fashion, today we are going to be talking about our universe and the fact that it is most likely shaped like a donut. In 1999, The Simpsons released the 22nd episode of their 10th season entitled They Saved Lisa's Brain, in which Lisa and her band of high IQ friends attempt to rule Springfield with their superior intellect. The episode also features one Stephen Hawking, you know, the guy who discovered that black holes emit radiation and advanced science tenfold during his time on Earth. Well, anyways, near the end of the episode, Hawking and Homer, an unlikely duo, are hanging out at Moe's Tavern when Hawking says, "Your theory of a donut-shaped universe is intriguing, Homer. I might have to steal it." 4 years after the episode came out, cosmologists discovered a pattern that actually supported Homer's theory that the universe was in fact donut-shaped, but they call it torus-shaped. But where's the fun in that? Radiation patterns in space suggested that the universe is round and tube-like but empty in the middle. I really want a donut now. Okay, this next one is pretty crazy because not only did The Simpsons accurately predict the winner of the Super Bowl once or twice, they did it 3 times in a row. In season 3, episode 14, About Lisa the Greek, which aired back in 1992, Lisa begins accurately predicting the outcome of NFL games. Homer, of course, uses this to his advantage and begins scamming people out of massive amounts of money through sports betting. When Lisa discovers what Homer has been doing with her gift, she makes one final prediction: that if she still loves her dad, Washington will win, but if she doesn't, the Buffalo Bills will take home the trophy. In the show, Washington won, and just a few days later, Washington won against the Bills in real life. The following year, the episode was aired with a dub that switched out Washington for the Dallas Cowboys, who were set to play the Bills in the championship game. The Cowboys won on the show, and a few days later, the prediction was proved correct. The following year, the Cowboys and the Bills were once again playing in the championship game. A few lines were added to the episode regarding the fact that it was a rematch, but the prediction remained the same, and it was right again. In our number 3 spot today, we have a three-eyed mutant fish. In 1990, The Simpsons released episode 4 of season 2 titled Two Cars in Every Garage and Three Eyes on Every Fish. In the episode, Bart catches a fish with 3 eyes, and the origin of the mutation is ultimately traced back to Mr. Burns' power plant, which is shown to be leaking radioactive waste into the rivers of Springfield. In the episode, Burns is also running for governor, and nearing the end of the show, he joins the Simpsons at their home for dinner along with a gaggle of paparazzi. During the meal, Marge presents Burns with the mutant fish cooked up on a silver platter. Initially a shoo-in for the position, when Burns spits out the disgusting fish, which he claimed was perfectly natural, his campaign went down the drain. In 2011, 21 years after the episode first aired, a fisherman caught a very similar three-eyed fish near a nuclear power plant in Argentina. Coincidence? You tell me. Next up, we have Sir Richard Branson in space. In 2014, The Simpsons released episode 15 of season 25, The War of Art. The episode mainly follows a conflict between Marge and her neighbor, Kirk Evelyn Van Houten. She buys a painting from him for dirt cheap, but eventually she realizes that it's worth an insane amount of money. She tries to sell it, Kirk gets pissed, his ex shows up and claims it's hers, but also it's a fake, and no one makes any money in the end. Anyways, during the episode, a clip shows Sir Richard Branson chilling out in space using the zero-gravity air like it's a beach recliner while staring at the painting. In July of 2021, this prediction came true, minus the whole painting thing. Sir Richard Branson became the first billionaire to blast off into outer space using his very own vessel. The space flight, known as Unity 22, was piloted by David McKay and Michael Masucci and held 4 passengers, including Sir Branson himself. Pretty neat stuff. Next up, censorship. Nothing new for this channel, you guys know the drill. There's a lot of things that I can't say on this platform because YouTube doesn't allow it. So yes, I will say BLOOD every time because I can't actually say the word. So yes, censorship is nothing new. And The Simpsons didn't invent it or predict it as a whole, but they may have predicted the censorship of Michelangelo's The David's Bits in episode 9 of season 2, Itchy, Scratchy, and Marge. In the episode, Marge becomes enraged by the graphic violence depicted in the children's television show Itchy and Scratchy, and so she goes on a censorship rage throughout the city of Springfield. And then she learns that Michelangelo's David is going on a world tour, during which it will be making a stop in Springfield. Marge organizes a protest, resulting in pants being put on the statue. The episode came out in 1990, and 26 years later in 2016, the prediction came true when a replica of the David was set to be unveiled in Russia. Residents were asked to vote on whether or not the statue's bits should be covered in the name of modesty. And in 2023, images of the statue were banned in schools across Florida after a principal was fired for showing the image. Next on our list, we have The Simpsons' prediction of Greece's economic crisis in season 23, episode 10, which aired on January 8th of 2012. In the episode entitled Politically Inept with Homer Simpson, Homer appeared as a guest on a cable network news broadcast. Like most news channels, the titles of upcoming segments ran across the bottom of the screen, but one in particular really caught the attention of viewers. Europe puts Greece on eBay. In 2015, this prediction almost came true. After defaulting on 3 bailout loans, the country became the first economically developed country unable to make a payment IMF loan, and people began to seriously fear for the possibility of Greece exiting the Eurozone, meaning that the country would no longer be entitled to use the euro as an acceptable form of currency due to the state of their economy having a negative impact on the euro's value. Next up, All You Can Eat. In season 4, episode 8, New Kid on the Block, released in 2002, Homer visits an all-you-can-eat seafood restaurant. I cannot go to all-you-can-eat places because I always try to eat my money's worth and I just end up feeling so sick. Which I guess is kind of what Homer did. He ate and ate and ate until he was eventually kicked out for eating too much. I guess even unlimited has a limit at some point. Naturally, Homer goes on to sue the restaurant for false advertising. 5 years later, in 2017, a man dining at an all-you-can-eat restaurant in Massachusetts had a very similar experience to Homer after being kicked out of the all-you-can-eat restaurant Golden Corral after spending 7 hours at the buffet and eating more than 50 pounds of food. He attempted to sue the restaurant for $2 million on the grounds of false advertising, but as far as I know, to no avail. I'm not really sure if The Simpsons predicted this one or just gave the guy the idea. Next up, Grease thieves. In the 1998 episode Lard of the Dance, episode 1 of season 10, Homer comes up with a business idea. Is it lucrative? Not really. Is it insane? Kind of. After learning from convenience store owner Apu that he could sell grease to make a profit, Homer begins doing exactly that. Originally, he cooks bacon to get the grease, but it's not enough to make any real kind of money. In fact, he's losing money, and so he decides to enlist the help of his son, Bart. He forces Bart to quit school, and the pair become grease thieves, stealing grease from fast food restaurants and Bart's school. But of course, they still didn't make much money. In 2008, the high prices of oil created a black market for grease, specifically yellow grease, which apparently could be used in biofuels. All of a sudden, a string of grease thefts broke out across the nation, and one man even stole 300 gallons of grease from the beloved Burger King. If this biofuel thing actually works, I feel like we should really get on it ASAP. And I don't know, maybe give like local fast food restaurants some kind of tax return in exchange for their used oil. Just an idea. I could run for president. Next up, we have the Python Challenge. In episode 20 of season 4, Whacking Day, which premiered on April 29th of 1993, the citizens of Springfield participate in a tradition dating all the way back to the founding father of the town, Jebediah Springfield. All of the residents band together to drive snakes into the center of the town, and then they whack them until they die. In 2013, 20 years after the episode aired, this tradition became an actual thing. Every year, residents of the Florida Everglades participate in a month-long event that centers itself around python removal. And there are even cash rewards for participants that submit humanely killed pythons at official checkpoints within 24 hours of capture. The event is run by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation in an effort to protect the Everglades ecosystem from the invasive snake. So while it sounds awful, it has actually had a huge positive impact on native wildlife and the environment as well. And finally, we have the Simpsons prediction of ferrets being sold as toy poodles. In season 13, episode 22, Papa's got a brand new badge. Fat Tony, mob boss, and grandfather to Maggie Simpson, for those who don't know, comes up with a new way to scam people out of their hard-earned money. He glues a bunch of cotton balls on a crap ton of ferrets and attempts to sell them to a pet store, passing them off as designer dogs. That episode aired in 2002, and in 2012, it actually happened. A man bought 2 toy poodles for $150, which honestly should have been the first red flag, but whatever. He took them to the vet, only to discover that they weren't toy poodles, and in fact they weren't even dogs, and they weren't even regular ferrets either. They were massive ferrets that had been fed steroids and shaved to resemble dogs. Again, I'm not sure if The Simpsons predicted this or if they just put the idea out there, but it's absolutely crazy. You want my advice? Get yourself a rescue. Avoid this whole thing.
Did The Simpsons predict Twitter becoming X? Did they know horse meat was going to end up in burgers across the United Kingdom? Does this cartoon predict future events, or is reality forming around The Simpsons? These are terrifying Simpsons predictions that came true. In 1994, The Simpsons had a moment where lunch lady Doris pours assorted horse parts from a giant metal tub labeled assorted horse parts into the school meals at Springfield Elementary. It's a quick gag, just a part of the show's usual weirdness, but in 2013, that throwaway joke became one of the more talked about scenes in the show, and not for a good reason. A bunch of horse DNA was found in beef products in the United Kingdom. People were eating burgers, understandably, believing that there was no trace of horse meat in it. As authorities worked to track down the perps, it turned out this was not just a one-off mistake either. It was a massive fraud. Companies were deliberately passing off horse meat as beef in all kinds of products, from frozen meals to burgers. The whole thing led to product recalls, public outrage, and a serious drop in trust for food companies. The Simpsons had foreshadowed the whole scandal with one random visual gag. Now let's look at a much later episode that is still over a decade old now. Yikes. Season 23, episode 21, Ned and Edna's Blenda Agenda. In this episode, Homer's phone briefly shows an app with a large X as the logo, amongst other more standard looking social media apps snaps. If you weren't paying attention, you'd totally miss it, which people did back in 2012. But when Twitter rebranded to X in 2023, and someone decided to rewatch season 23 of The Simpsons for some reason, you were likely like, holy crap, Homer has X on his phone. The Simpsons writers didn't predict the exact company or context, but they did nail the idea of an X symbol taking over a major platform. Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, including ditching the iconic blue bird logo for a bold X as part of his vision to transform the platform. Now, is a company with an X logo really that out there and original? No, but it is interesting that this fictional logo was specifically meant to be a social media app. In the 1995 episode Lisa's Wedding, Lisa's future was a mix of predictions, some obvious, some way out there. One of the more bizarre moments was when the episode showed librarians being replaced by robots. Back then, the idea of robots in libraries seemed so futuristic, almost impossible. But in 2016, a group of students at a university in Wales debuted a robot librarian named Hugh. Hugh was designed to help library goers by guiding them to books and listening to their requests. Not only did The Simpsons get the idea of robot librarians right, but they also nailed the name, Hugh. And yeah, I'm guessing the university students named their robot after The Simpsons episode specifically, but still, pretty cool. Hugh was not the only piece of futurism predicted in this episode, though. The show also had a shot of a building behind London's Tower Bridge, and it looked exactly like the Shard. But the thing is, this building wouldn't start construction until 2009, years after the episode aired. Was this just a lucky coincidence? Well, considering The Simpsons' track record, I don't know. The Frying Dutchman episode of The Simpsons shows Homer at an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet. Of course, in true Homer fashion, he overdoes it, eating so much shrimp and lobster that he's eventually just kicked out of the restaurant, so he decides to sue for false advertising. Well, years later, a man in Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts, sued the Golden Corral buffet chain for $2 million, claiming false advertising after being kicked out of the restaurant for eating too much. So yeah, he was essentially in the same position as Homer. Oh, and the case even ended in an out-of-court settlement, just like in the episode. The similarity is wild, especially considering the case wasn't some huge media sensation. It was just one guy trying to get back at a buffet that kicked him out for eating too much. I've heard pretty much every one of these Simpsons predictions, but this one's new to me. In The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace from 1998, Homer tries his hand at being an inventor, and during a scene he writes an equation on a chalkboard that seems like just complete gibberish. It's something nobody would ever have thought twice about. That is, if it weren't for the fact that when you break it down, the equation is shockingly close to predicting the mass of the Higgs boson particle, something scientists didn't discover until 2012. The Higgs boson is critical to understanding how particles get mass, and scientists spent decades searching for it. In fact, the equation Homer wrote turned out to be so close to the real thing that Dr. Simon Singh, a British science writer, pointed out the resemblance, saying it almost predicted the mass of the elementary particle. That equation predicts the mass of the Higgs boson. If you work it out, you get the mass of a Higgs boson that's only a bit larger than the nano mass of a Higgs boson actually is. It's kind of amazing, as Homer makes this prediction 14 years before it was discovered, end quote. So yeah, pretty nuts that a cartoon teased at something as complex as a fundamental particle years before it was even discovered. If you're a Simpsons fan, you probably remember Blinky, the three-eyed fish found near the Springfield nuclear power plant. Well, Life, again, decided to copy the show when a real-world version of Blinky showed up in Argentina. Fishermen there caught a three-eyed wolffish in a reservoir that's fed by a local nuclear power plant. Now, of course, the discovery was pretty disturbing. It's fun seeing a three-eyed fish in a light, frothy cartoon full of people with bright yellow skin. It's a bit more concerning seeing toxic fish show up in real life, especially one formed out of polluted water. Fishermen weren't thrilled about it either. Julian Smutt, one of the fishermen, said, "We were fishing and we got the surprise of getting this rare specimen. As it was dark at the time, we did not notice, but then you looked at him with a flashlight and you saw that he had a third eye." The fish was handed over to local authorities for testing. Still don't know exactly what caused the mutation, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it was the radioactive water probably. The latest in the long line of Simpsons episodes fans look back on with added context is The Great Fatsby from season 28. In this episode from 2017, a character who is basically a Simpsons version of Diddy Combs without actually being called Diddy Combs throws an exclusive party where everyone's dressed in white. Looking at these screenshots, it's really hard to believe this episode wasn't just released like last month as a very obvious dig. Now, Diddy's parties were very well known in Hollywood. Not everyone knew about all the darker stuff going on, but the stuff on the surface, like the all-white dress code, some of the celebrities that would show up, all that stuff was pretty common knowledge. So this one may not be as surprising as other stuff on this list, but it may be the most eerie to look back on. Definitely an episode that hasn't aged well. One of the most shocking stories of 2013 was when Edward Snowden leaked information about the US government's surveillance program, revealing that the NSA was spying on its citizens on a massive scale. The whole thing shook people's trust in the government, and the reality hit hard when it turned out that the government was listening to private conversations, tracking online activity, and monitoring just about everything. The crazy part, The Simpsons actually predicted it years before. In The Simpsons movie from 2007, there's a scene where the family is on the run, and Marge says to Lisa, "Oh, Lisa." I'm not even gonna try. "Oh, Lisa, it's not like the government is listening to everybody's conversation." Right after, the scene cuts to the NSA doing exactly that, spying on everyone. So yeah, this moment hit a little differently after Snowden's revelations. Here's one of the Simpsons moments that's very weird. Feels like it was destined to happen. In season 2, there's an episode called Brush with Greatness, where Marge gets this letter from Ringo Starr after she paints a portrait of him. After years of waiting, she finally hears back from him, and this gives her the confidence to pursue her art. Sounds like the kind of heartwarming plot you'd expect from a cartoon, but a little too sweet to happen in real life, right? But in May of 2024, something very similar happened, but this time it was another Beatle, Paul McCartney, who responded to a fan. A woman named Adrian from Brooklyn had done a video interview 60 years before declaring her love for Paul McCartney. Fast forward to 2024, and Paul saw the video, responded to it on TikTok and Instagram, and even invited her to a photo exhibition in New York. Before that, he'd also responded to 2 women from Essex who'd sent him a mixtape decades before. Alright, the whole Fox merger situation. If you keep up with the business world, you probably know about the Disney-Fox merger that went down in 2019, but if you go back to 1998, The Simpsons predicted this whole thing. In this season 10 episode, there's an establishing shot of the 20th Century Fox entrance with text below reading a division of the Walt Disney Company. Well, 21 years later, Disney purchased Fox for $71 billion, absorbing massive properties like The Simpsons, Avatar, X-Men, and a whole list of other stuff. Now, this one wasn't super far-fetched, to be fair. Disney is a massive conglomerate. They buy up lots of companies, but that's been happening more in the last decade or so, and the idea of Disney owning something like The Simpsons, which was seen as pretty edgy back then, was kind of unheard of. That's why it was a joke. The Simpsons has always poked fun at corporate culture, but here it was, predicting the exact future of not only the media industry, but itself. What streaming service can you find The Simpsons on now? Disney Plus.
We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump.
This machine is rigged!
We're looking into a picture going around online this month. It claims to show a screenshot of a 2002 episode of The Simpsons that eerily mirrors real-life events.
Soccer versus football, tiger attacks, and voting scandals from the Simpsons series to our future and present. Here are some insane predictions made by the series throughout the years. Also, which Simpsons character do you think is responsible for making one of the biggest scientific discoveries to date? Stay tuned to find out. Starting off our list today, we have the FIFA corruption scandal. I feel like this next statement could go one of 2 ways, but in the name of entertainment, I'm gonna continue. While we were all aware that football or soccer players, if you're from the Americas, have been known to exaggerate and fabricate injuries on the field, in 2015 the world was shocked to find out that the majority of faking it didn't actually take place on the field or in the bedroom, but instead inside of the FIFA headquarters. The prediction was made by The Simpsons in 2015 in episode 16 of season 25, You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee. In the episode, Homer becomes a referee for the World Football Federation, and during his time in the field and on the field, he quickly learns that there is an alarming level of corruption and bribery going on in regards to the game. Just 1 year after the episode aired, FIFA headquarters were raided and FIFA officials were arrested on corruption charges. In total, over $150 million in bribes were accepted over the course of 2 decades. Sorry, football fans. Lions, Tigers, and Siegfried and Roy. In episode 10, season 5, Springfield, spelt with a $sign instead of an S, the town legalized gambling. And so naturally, Mr. Burns, the money addict, decides to open up a casino in Springfield, in which he has 2 German magicians, Gunther and Ernst, perform with their white tiger. But during one of the acts, the tiger turns on and attacks the men. The episode first aired in 1993, and then, just 10 years later, the incident was brought to life during a Las Vegas performance starring Siegfried, Roy, and their white Bengal tiger. During one of the trio's performances, the animal started to stray away from the routine, and when Roy tried to redirect the animal, who was coming increasingly invested in and close to the audience, he was met with the tiger's jaws locked tightly around his neck. The ordeal ended in Roy becoming partially paralyzed, and he and Siegfried's performance days coming to an end. Next up, Barack Obama versus John McCain versus Mitt Romney versus technical error, or perhaps something more sinister. In season 20, episode 4 of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 19XIX, Homer Simpson walks into a voting booth and places a vote for Barack Obama, only to have the machine record a vote for his 2008 opponent, John McCain. This happens several times before Homer yells, "This machine is rigged!" He's then sucked into the machine and thrown out of the booth. While no one was manhandled by a voting booth during the 2012 election that took place just 4 years after the episode aired, an instance of faulty voting machinery did occur. The incident was uploaded to YouTube by user High-Tech Redneck. The video shows the man selecting Obama as the 2012 president with Joe Biden as the vice president, but when he tries to select the option, the machine registers the vote as one for Mitt Romney with Paul Ryan as vice president. He deselects and reselects Obama several times, but each time Mitt Romney becomes highlighted on the machine. He claims he then called a volunteer over who said, "It's nothing to worry about, everything will be okay," and then walked away. Crazy times, friends. Next up, the Higgs boson particle equation, also known as the God particle equation. The discovery of the Higgs boson, which relates to mass, quarks, and electrons in a way I don't understand, is one of the greatest scientific discoveries made to date. I mean, the particle is what makes the existence of and the interactions of matter possible. But I'm not a scientist, I'm a YouTuber. So let's stop talking about science and get into how The Simpsons predicted the equation that led to finding the mass of the particle back in 1988. 14 years before scientists cracked the code in real life. In season 10, episode 2, The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace, Homer is seen scribbling manically on a chalkboard, which shows a lengthy equation that almost exactly calculates the mass of the Higgs boson, which is crazy, especially considering the 2 scientists who discovered the exact mass using an incredibly similar equation won a joint Nobel Prize. I feel like Homer might have deserved a shout out in their acceptance speech, but I'll let it slide. Next up, if you're eating a burger, either put it down or skip this point because we've got beef. Horse beef, to be exact. In episode 19 of season 5, Sweet Seymour Skinner's Bad song, Doris the lunch lady is seen adding horse parts to cafeteria food. Gross, and also illegal. In 2013, 19 years after the episode originally aired, health officials in the UK discovered an alarming amount of meat was actually contaminated with horse. Many products were pulled from the shelves, one in particular being the Tesco hamburgers, which were advertised as beef but contained at least 29% horse meat. Obviously, people were pissed and millions of dollars in revenue was lost by multiple businesses across the country due to the supply chain issue. Gross. The government government or totally spies? I'm just kidding, this isn't a crossover episode, but rather a prediction made in the 2007 Simpsons movie, The Simpsons Movie. You know, the one where Homer causes Springfield to become the most polluted place in the world, leading to a giant glass dome being placed over the town by the Environmental Protection Agency in an attempt to contain the issue. Well, Homer, Marge, Lisa, Bart, and Maggie somehow manage to escape, but they are located by the National Security Agency, the NSA, who were able to track them by listening to their phone calls, tracking their locations, and monitoring them through video surveillance. Sound familiar? In 2013, just 6 years after the movie's release, the shoe dropped and the whistle blew when Edward Snowden revealed that the real-life NSA had been doing exactly that. While the information that the government is spying on us might seem like a throwaway topic of discussion today, back then it was a revelation and caused mass outrage. The Ebola outbreak of 2014 is next on the list. The epidemic was predicted in 1997, 17 years before the American outbreak took place. In episode 3 of season 9, Lisa's Sacks, Marge is seen reading Curious George and the Ebola virus to Bart in an attempt to cheer him up. While I am aware that the Ebola virus was already a thing in the 90s, in fact it was discovered in like 1976, the fact that it was paired with Curious George is what warrants the tableau earning itself a spot on today's list. You see, in 2014, the year of the outbreak, Curious George released its 100th episode. Coincidence? Perhaps, but it's a bit uncanny in my opinion. Speaking of outbreaks, remember that time we all had to stay home between the years of 2020 and 2022? Yeah, The Simpsons predicted that too. I mean, obviously, but not only did they predict the outbreak of an illness, they also predicted the outbreak of killer bees. In episode 21 of season 4, Marge in Chains, which aired all the way back in 1993, an unprecedented flu sweeps through Springfield, which causes the townspeople to riot. During said riot, while the citizens of the town are demanding a cure for the illness, a swarm of killer bees is unleashed. 27 years later, not only do we experience a very famous outbreak that leaves all of us locked in our homes, in one of the same years, America and the western coast of Canada experienced an infestation of killer hornets, whose stings are extremely painful and in some cases lethal. Luckily, the insects have since been eradicated from the areas and we are now allowed to leave our houses, but like, come on, kick us when you're down, why don't ya? Walt Disney, Fox, or both. In season 10, episode 5, When You Dish Upon a Star, Homer decides to make a call to the 20th Century Fox executives to suggest an idea for a movie. The next scene, which is accompanied by a caption that reads 1 month later, shows that the 20th Century Fox Studios has now become a division of Walt Disney. The episode was aired in 1998, and the prediction came true 21 years later in 2019 when Disney announced its $71 billion merger with the company. While it is astounding just how many predictions The Simpsons have gotten right, I'm not sure if I can necessarily say I'm surprised by this one, as Disney at this point is known for buying up companies and franchises including Marvel, Hollywood Records, ABC, Vice Media, Pixar, National Geographic, ESPN, and many, many more. And finally, is it getting hot in here? If it is, you could try blocking the sun, like they did in season 6, episode 25 of The Simpsons, Who Shot Mr. Burns? In the episode, which aired in 1995, an oil reserve is discovered beneath the Springfield Elementary School. Mr. Burns is quick to begin drilling for oil, and then once he has emptied the reserve, Burns blocks out the sun so that every person in Springfield is forced to use energy from his power plant. While I don't necessarily understand the logic in the episode, I do understand that in 2023, 28 years after The Simpsons floated the original idea, George Soros has stated that it is his goal to block out the sun using geoengineering. But it's not actually as bad as it sounds. You see, while Soros does want to block out the sun, he only wants to do it in Antarctica, and he wants to do it in an effort to reduce the rate at which the Arctic ice is melting. Very interesting and definitely something to look out for.
We all know life imitates art sometimes, but it seems to happen a lot more with The Simpsons. From The Simpsons predicting these Super Bowl results 3 times in a row, to technology eerily similar to stuff seen in the cartoon coming out the same year The Simpsons predicted. These are some of the spookiest Simpsons predictions that came true. So first up, we have Trump 2024. So back in 2015, there was a Simpsons short called Trumptastic Voyage. In a scene where Homer flies by a billboard, we see a sign that reads Trump 2024. Of course, not only did Trump end up running again in 2024, but he won. To take things just a step further though, life imitated art again when Donald Trump was arrested the same day the Barbie movie was released. Now, what am I referring to here? Well, in episode 14 of season 5, Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy, a news report is shown on TV documenting the release of the new Malibu Stacy doll, pretty much the Barbie of the Simpsons universe. At the end of the news report, Kent Brockman quickly slips in the fact that the US president has been arrested, and then the segment ends. So the US president of the Simpsons universe was arrested on the day of a Malibu Stacy movie coming out, and in real life, Trump was arrested the day Barbie hit theaters. Not on the same charges, to be fair. In The Simpsons, Brockman casually revealed that the president had killed someone, but the fact that the real life played out kinda like it did in The Simpsons, not just with Trump's political comeback, but the fact that he ended up being arrested on the day of the Barbie movie's release, just like the president in the cartoon as well, definitely a weird one. In the 1992 episode Lisa the Greek, Homer figures out that Lisa has a weirdly accurate knack for predicting NFL game outcomes. She gets upset when she realizes that he's been using her predictions for gambling, and completely distraught, she makes her own gamble. If she still loves her dad, Washington will win the Super Bowl, but if she doesn't, then the Buffalo Bills will win. In the end, Washington wins. All is well, move on to the next episode and more hijinks ensue. But here's what happened in real life, and just a few days after the episode aired, no less. Washington defeated Buffalo in the Super Bowl. Now, alright, it's 50-50 odds, big deal, but then the following year, Fox re-aired the episode. They tweaked it for the upcoming Super Bowl, changing some lines, adding the Dallas Cowboys to replace Washington. In the episode, Dallas wins, and sure enough, Dallas ended up winning in real life too. Next year's Super Bowl saw the two teams facing each other again, and The Simpsons once again re-aired the episode, updating another couple lines to account for the rematch, and once again, Dallas took the win. In the 2008 episode Treehouse of Horror 19, which aired right before the presidential election that year, Homer goes to vote on an electronic voting machine. He tries to vote for Barack Obama, but the machine keeps registering his vote for John McCain instead. He tries 6 times, and each time it switches his vote. It's pretty absurd, but the joke hits hard given the whole conversation about voting technology, especially looking back after 2012, when there were a ton of reports that a similar glitch had happened in real life. In some states, electronic voting machines were flipping votes for Obama to Mitt Romney, which obviously raised huge concerns about the security of electronic voting systems. And it's freaky to think that a wacky gag on a friendly cartoon like The Simpsons seemed to be playing out in real life. The scariest part about this for me, though, is that I bet a lot of you watching this are too young to even remember the 2012 election, let alone the 2008 one. In the 2006 episode Homer's Paternity Goot, Homer believes that he's found his biological father, a man named Mason Fairbanks, who tells him a tale about a lost emerald treasure in a sunken shipwreck called Piso Majado. They take a submarine to go find the treasure, but of course, things go wrong. Homer ends up getting stuck in the wreck and starts running out of oxygen in his sub. Funny in The Simpsons, but in real life, this would of course be a pretty horrific situation to find yourself in. A situation that 5 tourists would find themselves in years later. A lot of people started drawing parallels to this episode and the Titan submersible accident. On June 18th of 2023, 5 people boarded the OceanGate's Titan submersible to explore the Titanic wreck in the Atlantic Ocean. Sadly, within 2 hours of the dive, the sub lost communication, and it then imploded, killing everyone on board. Now, it's not like a small submarine getting stuck underwater is a novel story concept, but there's another connection to The Simpsons here. One of The Simpsons writers actually went on to make a few trips with OceanGate to see the Titanic wreck. He later told the US Sun that every single time there were issues with the communication systems. In the 1998 episode Lard of the Dance, Homer gets the idea to start stealing grease to make money, and who better to enlist for a job like that than his very own rascal of a son, Bart. Bart ends up stealing grease from the school cafeteria Krusty Burger. Pretty standard, silly Simpson stuff. But years later, this happened for real. In 2008, as the price of oil started to skyrocket, a black market for used grease started coming about. Restaurant grease thefts were becoming a big problem. An article in the New York Times that year even came out with a story where a man stole over 300 gallons of grease from a Burger King. And if I had to choose one fast food restaurant that is basically our version of Krusty Burger, it would be Burger King. I mean, sure, McDonald's has Ronald McDonald as a mascot, another clown, but they don't have burger in their name. Plus, Burger King had partnered with The Simpsons for a long time, releasing all those awesome Simpsons Treehouse of Horror kids meal toys in the 2000s. Good old days. Only reason to go to Burger King, in my opinion, actually. I will die on that hill. Burger King, one of the worst fast food restaurants. Back in Season 3, Episode 24, Brother, Can You Spare Two Dimes?, Homer's brother Herb invents a device that helps parents understand what their infants' cries mean, and you guessed it, turns out technology like this isn't actually that far-fetched. There's a company called Zoundream that's actually working on something similar. They've created technology that analyzes infant cries to figure out whether they're hungry, tired, or just fussy. According to their website, their system looks at things like cry acoustics, brain signals, and even facial expressions to figure out what's going on. So yeah, it's a real thing in development and could be on the market sooner than you think.